185,000 soldiers prepared to crush Jerusalem. By sunrise, they were gone. No battle, no survivors, no explanation. What happened that night? And why this forgotten story may matter more to you than you think. The year was 701 BC. The Assyrian Empire, superpower of its day, was sweeping across the world. City after city burned. Fear marched with them like a shadow. And now, Jerusalem was surrounded. Inside the walls, a wounded city. Families whispered in fear, "They've burned Lachish. They're camped at our gates." Imagine standing on those walls at night. You hear enemy fires crackling below. You see endless tents stretching into the valley. You wonder, will tomorrow be my last sunrise? That was Jerusalem's darkest night, and dark nights always test what we truly believe. But what happens when belief collides with impossible odds? Mini cliffhanger. The people of Judah weren't just afraid of losing a battle, they feared losing their future, their home, their very identity. And maybe you've felt that too. Not soldiers at your gates, but fear, loss, uncertainty, a diagnosis, a betrayal. When life feels surrounded, when hope feels gone, the real question isn't just, will I survive? It's this: is God still with me? That night in Jerusalem answered that question, not just for them, but for us. Because faith isn't proven when life is easy. It's proven when the odds are impossible. And the next move in this war would change everything. What's the Assyria you feel surrounded by right now? Comment below. I'd love to hear. If you lived in the ancient world, the very name Assyria made you tremble. Not just powerful, unstoppable. Fear marched before their armies, and at the center of it all stood one man, Sennacherib. Not just a king, but a conqueror who believed no god, not even the God of Israel, could resist him. On the stone walls of Nineveh, his own words are still carved. "I destroyed cities like a storm. Their kings bowed or died." For Sennacherib, Jerusalem was just his next trophy. A small, stubborn kingdom that dared to resist. It seemed certain it would fall, like all the others. But something was about to happen that no one expected. That's the danger of pride. It convinces you that past victories guarantee future ones. It whispers, "You're untouchable. Nothing can stop you." But pride always carries an expiration date, and Jerusalem was about to prove it. It's easy to shake our heads at Sennacherib. But here's the truth. Assyria isn't just ancient history. We build our own Assyrias today. Maybe it's a career that becomes your identity. Maybe it's money, reputation, or success you think will protect you. Maybe it's governments, systems, or even your own strength. We think we're secure until the storm comes, until everything we built begins to crack. That's where Judah stood, staring down an empire they could never defeat. And that's where we often stand too, surrounded by forces bigger than us. But here's the difference. Sennacherib was trusting in himself. Jerusalem was about to trust in someone greater. What's the empire you've leaned on? Career, money, even self-confidence? Drop one word in the comments, and the turning point would not come in a war room, but in a prayer room. The Assyrian army had numbers. It had weapons. It had pride. But inside Jerusalem, there was one thing they could not calculate: the prayer of a king. This was the turning point of the story. The letter from Sennacherib was more than ink on parchment. It was a threat, a boast, a challenge against God himself. Servants brought it into the palace with shaking hands. Every word dripped with arrogance. "No God has ever stopped me. Yours won't either." Fear spread like wildfire. People whispered, "Lachish is gone. The other cities have fallen. Tomorrow, we're next." But while the city trembled, Hezekiah did not run to the armory. He carried the letter into the temple. Picture it: a king walking alone through silent courtyards, past guards who could give no comfort, up the worn steps of God's house. Inside, the lamps flickered shadows. Hezekiah unrolled the letter on the altar. Every threat, every insult, every mockery against the living God. And he prayed, "Lord, You alone are God over all kingdoms. Hear Sennacherib's words. Deliver us, so the whole earth may know you alone are God. It wasn't politics, it wasn't bargaining. It was surrender, raw, trembling, real. And maybe you've been there too. Not in a palace, but at a hospital bed. Not surrounded by soldiers, but by bills, fear, or grief. Not mocked by a king, but by voices whispering, "You won't make it. You're finished." Maybe you've prayed the same desperate words, "God, I can't. Please help me." That kind of prayer is the hinge of history. It may not sound strong, it may not look powerful, but heaven bends to listen. While Hezekiah prayed, nothing seemed to change outside the walls. The Assyrian fires still burned, the soldiers still laughed, the threats still echoed in the night, but something unseen had already shifted. Not the shuffle of boots, not the clang of swords, but the quiet stirrings of an answer. Because God heard him, right then. And the reply would come, not through military strength, but through a word. A prophet's word. A voice that could change everything. Have you ever prayed a prayer like that, raw and desperate? Type yes in the comments if you know that feeling. Because Hezekiah had. And the next voice Jerusalem would hear was Isaiah's. And the next voice Jerusalem would hear was Isaiah's. Hezekiah had prayed in silence. The letter lay open before God. The city held its breath. And then, heaven answered. Not with thunder, not with swords, but with a prophet walking into the palace. Picture the scene. Courtyards crowded with soldiers who had no orders, servants whispering rumors of defeat, families clinging to one another in fear. Into that atmosphere of despair came Isaiah, calm, unshaken, carrying not his own opinion but the word of the Lord. He looked at the king and spoke words that split the silence. Thus says the Lord, do not be afraid of what you have heard. The first thing heaven gave was courage. No strategies, no maps, just this command, do not fear. And then Isaiah continued with a promise. I will put a spirit in him so that he will hear a rumor and return to his own land, and there I will cause him to fall by the sword. In a moment, the balance shifted. The empire that thought itself invincible was already marked for collapse. Think of how those words felt inside Jerusalem. The Assyrian campfires still burned outside. The valley still echoed with enemy laughter. Nothing looked different, but something was different. Hearts that had been trembling began to steady. Mothers whispered hope to their children. Soldiers lifted their heads again. Because when God speaks, fear begins to lose its grip, even before the battle is won. Have you ever received a word that gave you courage when nothing else could? Share one word in the comments. It may be the reminder someone else needs today. Isaiah's prophecy didn't drive the Assyrians away that night, but it gave Judah strength to face the darkness with hope. And in the camp below, the enemy still laughed, blind to the fact that history's deadliest night was already moving toward them. The stage was set. The next act would not be prophecy, but a miracle. The city of Jerusalem went to bed with fear. From the walls, families looked out across the valley and saw nothing but firelight against a sea of tents. Mocking voices rose from below, soldiers laughing, drinking, boasting of tomorrow's victory. Children clung to their mothers. Fathers stared into the dark, wondering if this was their last night alive. Every torch in the Assyrian camp felt like a countdown. Every cheer cut like a dagger. Jerusalem closed its eyes in restless sleep, yet none could escape the weight pressing on their souls. And then, silence. Not ordinary midnight silence. Heavier, unnatural. Even the wind seemed to stop. Creation itself held its breath. The scriptures say it simply, the angel of the Lord went out. No thunder, no lightning, no trumpet blast, just a presence, unseen, unstoppable, descending into the heart of the Assyrian camp. At first, no one on the walls noticed. A shout cut off mid-sentence. The clanging of armor fell quiet. In the camp below, a cup slipped from a soldier's hand. Another dropped his blade. Rows of men staggered, then collapsed into the dust. Not to sword, not to arrow, not to disease, but to the command of heaven. Imagine the sound, thousands of bodies striking the earth almost in unison, armor crashing, torches hissing out, songs of victory swallowed by dreadful silence. And still, the angel moved, unseen, unstoppable, relentless. By the time night reached its deepest hour, 185,000 soldiers, the pride of Assyria, lay still. The army that had crushed nations like dry leaves in the wind now slept the sleep from which no man wakes. Above it all, Jerusalem still stood, not because of walls, not because of warriors, but because one trembling king carried a letter to the temple and laid it before the throne of the living God. The city did not yet know. Mothers still whispered fearful prayers. Soldiers still braced for an attack that would never come. But while they slept, heaven had already won the battle. Maybe you've never seen an angel with your eyes, but maybe you've felt one. That night you should have died, but didn't. That season when everything was against you, but somehow you're still standing. That moment when every door shut, yet one opened. Have you ever felt God step in when you least expected it? Share your story in the comments. It may be the encouragement someone else needs. And yet, the night was not the end. The city still slept, unaware of what had happened in the valley below. But when the sun rose, Judah would open their eyes to a sight no one could explain. The stage was set. The next act would not be fear, but revelation. The dawn broke over Jerusalem. Golden light spilled across the hills, yet the city held its breath. Mothers hushed their children. Soldiers leaned out from the walls, waiting for the sound they feared most: horns, marching boots, the roar of an army. Every second felt like the last. And then, nothing. The valley below was still. No banners, no voices. Only a silence so heavy it made hearts pound louder than drums. Then eyes began to see what ears already knew. The Assyrian camp was lifeless. Tents sagged. Fires smoked unattended. Weapons lay where hands had dropped them. Meals sat half-eaten, cups spilled in the dirt. The mightiest army on earth had vanished overnight. Picture the people stepping beyond the gates. Some froze in disbelief. Some fell to their knees and wept. Others whispered, "The Lord has done this." This was no ordinary victory. It was the unmistakable hand of God. That morning was more than survival. It was a sermon written in silence. And from it rise three truths, still speaking to us today. First, God hears the humble. Jerusalem wasn't saved by strength, but by surrender. One trembling king spread a letter before the Lord, and heaven moved. Your whispered prayers may carry farther than you think. Second, pride always falls. Sennacherib mocked the living God, boasting no nation could resist him. And yet, in one night, arrogance was silenced. Empires may roar, leaders may exalt themselves, but pride has an expiration date. Third, remember the miracles. The real danger is not just the battle ahead, but forgetting the victories already won. Forgetfulness feeds fear, but remembrance fuels faith. That's why this story was written down, so no one would forget what God did in a single night. Which of these three truths speaks to you most right now? Drop 1, 2, or 3 in the comments. Your answer may be the reminder someone else needs. That morning, Judah gained more than deliverance. They gained a testimony. Fear was replaced with awe. And across nations, word spread. The God of Israel is alive, powerful, and faithful. The story didn't end at the sunrise on Jerusalem's walls. It still whispers through history, waiting to be remembered in every battle we face today. News spreads fast in our world. Headlines hit our phones before we even open our eyes. And too often, they sound like modern war drums: conflict, collapse, crisis. But what if the oldest headline still matters today? Maybe you don't hear soldiers outside your walls, but you know the feeling of being surrounded by bills that won't wait, by a diagnosis you didn't expect, by the weight of anxiety that won't let you sleep. The world of 2025 doesn't look so different from Judah's darkest night. Uncertainty grows louder every day. The future feels fragile, and fear tells you that you are outnumbered. But the story of that night in Jerusalem still speaks. God is not shaken by the noise. He is not outnumbered, and He has not forgotten you. The God who silenced an empire still hears. The God who moved in the dark still moves in the unseen. It may not look like an angel sweeping through a camp. It may look like a breakthrough in your marriage, or peace in your heart when nothing outside has changed. But make no mistake, the God of Jerusalem is still the God of now. What battle are you facing today? Type it in the comments, or just write, "I am trusting God," because your testimony may be the word that keeps someone else standing. So if you feel surrounded, remember this truth. You may feel outnumbered, but you are not alone. That was the lesson Judah learned. That is the promise we can hold in 2025. And now the question comes to you. Where do you feel outnumbered? What would it look like to place that fear in God's hands, the way Hezekiah once did? If this story has spoken to you, don't keep it to yourself. Like this video. Comment your experience. Share it with a friend who needs hope today. Because sometimes the reminder, you're not alone, is exactly what keeps someone else standing. The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still. Exodus 14:14. And that promise still holds.